What is up, guys? You're tuning in to Nikki MGTV for another military video for all your military video needs. As always, you can hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, or down in the comments below. But as always, let's roll right to the topic. We have Josh with us. We're going to be talking about aviation jobs in general, because obviously this is a very different aspect of the military or the Navy in general. I would say aviation, as far as my experience with the Marine Corps, very different than the Marine Corps totally. And also from the Navy perspective, it's very different from the regular Navy. So, Josh, welcome.
Definitely an interesting career field to have. In my mind, it's one of the most rewarding. Being around, being inside, and working on aircraft is definitely one of the coolest parts about it. It's awesome being on a boat and seeing how all the operations go on. It's kind of amazing the first time you walk up to an aircraft carrier or any boat in general. But I still get pretty excited being around aircraft and seeing them take off and fly and all that kind of stuff.
Offline, I told you that my worst video that I probably regret is the one with JT going over the top 5 worst, top 5 best jobs. A lot of people want to be in aviation. I know myself. I told you I'm from Pax River, Maryland. That's where I wanted to be. I wanted to do aviation. Yeah. That's what I grew up around. So if you could pick, what are the best 3 aviation jobs and the 3 worst aviation jobs, and just briefly go why, even though we know this is entirely opinionated and no one's going to get butthurt in the comments down below, but let me know.
I'll start with the top ones. So my top pick for aviation ratings is any aircrew rating. So there's about 5 different variants, if I remember correctly, but all of them involve you flying inside of the aircraft and operating some sort of function, whether it be looking at radars and communications, or you're a search and rescue swimmer, or you're just a mechanic essentially. So, but flying in an actual aircraft, in my mind, would be the coolest thing. Now, I don't do that. I wanted to do it, and I have a lot of friends that do it, and they all love it. It's an awesome job. Like, if you get to go to work every day and fly in a military aircraft, I don't know what can be cooler than that, honestly. For being an enlisted job, it's as close as a pilot you're going to get, essentially. So that's my number 1 pick. Number 2, I'd probably say air traffic controller. So air traffic controllers are the guys that work in a tower on base or on the boat that talk to the aircraft. And number 3 would be AT, which is what I am. I'm a little biased towards it. And the only reason I say that is because it's a maintainer rate, but it's also, and personally, it's the most relaxed job out of all of them. It's the hardest schooling, the most technical rating, but you have to work in air conditioning for me, because our electronic components have to be cool. So you're gonna, whether it's 100 degrees outside or negative 20 degrees outside, it's always 60 degrees in my shop, which is a nice aspect to it. We have access to computers, TV, and other resources like that, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're on a boat on deployment, those things are pretty clutch, honestly. In
regards to that, as far as being a corpsman, it's the same thing. Like, our medical spaces have to be a certain temperature. That's in case someone's on the flight deck and they're a heat case, right? They have to be able to come down and cool down. And so medically speaking, where supplies, everything's it's supposed to be a certain temperature as well. Obviously, we've got TVs. We've got other stuff in medical that bring some benefits. But, yeah, definitely I can relate to that. So what are your 3 worst jobs that you want to say for aviation? Again, this is all opinionated.
These are the people I'm about to say are all kind of grouped into one. They're all ABs. So ABFs, ABHs, ABEs. So they're very prideful people, because they're aviation boatswain's mates. So if you have anything to do with the Navy, if you ever talk to a boatswain's mate, they are very about it or not about it. So they're, again, like the most prideful people. So same thing with the aviation boatswain's mates. A lot of hardworking people. But I would say those are the worst jobs, because you have to work in the worst conditions. I'm not saying that being on a flight deck is horrible. I don't have that much experience with it, but I work around people that are constantly on the flight deck in aviation in general. But no matter the temperature, the weather, anything like that, the conditions, you're going to be on the flight deck in full flight deck gear. So if it is 110 degrees outside, you will have long sleeves, leather gloves, a cranial, eye protection, long pants, steel toe boots, and a float coat. It's not that comfortable. being up there in all those conditions, especially around jet blast, and having to work next to these aircraft who are blowing a lot of heat. It's also the most dangerous. So they get extra pay. I think it's like $250 a month for flight deck pay. For the most part, like on my boat, we've never had any instance where someone gets hurt since I've been there, at least for the past few years. But in 2018, I believe it was, there was the gentleman on, I think it was the Ike or the Truman or some aircraft carrier out of Norfolk, where he walked the wrong way and got hit by one of the propellers for a C-2 Greyhound, and was killed instantly. So there's things like that. There's the kid in HSC 26 who got hit in the head with a tail blade. That's a whole nother topic and a whole nother discussion, but it's just a very dangerous field to be in. And anybody who has worked in the field long enough can tell you a story of a close call or someone they know who have gotten hurt. I have friends who work in squadrons that have lost fingers, have broken their hands and stuff like that. I work with people that have been electrocuted. So there's a lot of higher stakes when it comes to these jobs. Overall speaking, there's none on the list that don't fall into that category. But definitely the ABs working on the flight deck itself. I have a guy who used to be undesignated who worked in V4, which is where the ABFs work. And he was telling me stories about having to run behind these Harriers, which are jets the Marines use on the flight deck, and they're about to refuel it, but they only have maybe 1.5 feet of clearance of running behind them, and these engines are on, so they can easily get blown off. It's just a very dangerous place to work. There's a lot of variables that go into it, and you usually have people working up there that are undesignated airmen who are very new to the fleet, and they're the ones running up these aircraft and chaining them down and chalking the wheels and stuff like that. So, and it's the worst conditions too. You're gonna be a professional broom handler. You're gonna be painting a lot. You're gonna be doing a lot of needle gunning. But when you finally get to do your job, I would say it's hard to say that the ABs have the worst rating, because at the same time too, they got some of the coolest jobs. They're the guys landing helicopters and directing them and stuff like that. I would say ABE is at the bottom of the list though, because I have a couple buddies who are ABEs on a carrier, and my recruiter was an ABE one. Shout out to Pereira. But they're the guys that deal with the catapult and arresting gear on aircraft carriers. So as you know, on an aircraft carrier, they launch like F-18s and jets and stuff like that. So they have to lock their front wheel in, and they get thrown off the flight deck. So that equipment, and also the equipment that when they land, their hook catches onto, and it's very dangerous. There's been countless incidents of people being around the wire when it snaps or breaking, or they get stuck into it, and people get killed, people get hurt really bad. It damages a lot of stuff. So, but overall, like I said before, aviation is an awesome field to be in. Until you've been on a flight deck with an aircraft taking off around you or landing around you, or just seeing it in person, it's very rewarding. It's very exciting, and it can lead to a lot of really good jobs in the civilian world. Which, if you want to ask more questions about aviation or anything like that, please hit me up on Instagram. We'll leave the stuff in the description, I'm sure, or somewhere over here.
He's provided a lot of good information. Obviously, if you have more questions, we will bring him back. He's been very nice. He works night shifts, so he's been doing a lot of good stuff for us as well, and he can help out. But if you guys do have questions, you can hit him up on Instagram. You can also hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, or down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.